Evaluation question number 7.
Looking back at your preliminary task, what do you feel you have learnt in the progression from it to the full product? Overall, we think the preliminary task went quite well. We used all of the necessary shots,
Which were 180 degrees rule
shot, reverse shot,
and match on action.
We think we used them quite effectively,
Yeah.
didn't we?
Throughout the whole thing.
Yeah. Although we did think it went quite well because we used all the shots and we filmed it and edited it all right, but we did find that there was a couple of problems throughout the whole process, especially with editing. I think
editing was the biggest issue.
Mm-hmm.
We only really had one issue with the filming, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about these issues in detail now. So.
Yeah.
The first issue.
We're just starting with the issues.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So the first issue was the issue of camera stability. Our preliminary task video was way too shaky and uncomfortable to watch, which we got lots of feedback about. So in our main task we used a tripod, didn't we? What make was that?
The Velbon CX 540.
Yeah.
That one, yeah. And it was a very good tripod, which enabled us to make the camera steady on certain shots where we wanted it to be.
In our main task there was a few shots that were intended to be shaky, so that the tripod wasn't used then. So I think we learnt a lot about camera stability. And
the effects that it gives to the audience when they're watching it. Yeah. Another issue we had was unnecessary people in the background of shots. Now this was due to, not planning the day of filming properly and not planning out where the actual people who were with us filming were going to stand.
So like, for example, in one of the shots we were filming the actor walking through the door and we didn't realise that I was stood on the other side of the door and you could see me. So that created a big editing problem.
So we had to cut that down, which then affected the final product because we cut it down so much.
Yeah.
And also when the character was walking through the hall, there is a person in the background who wasn't meant to be there, but unfortunately was.
And we didn't give ourselves enough time to go and film it again.
No. So that was a bit bad, but we just carried on with the product as a whole and came out with it.
I think we learned a lot about time management from that.
Yeah, a lot about time management. Because although we had set out how long we were going to do things for, we hadn't really given ourselves enough time to kind of go back and redo or actually plan what we were going to do in that time. So like we'd say, oh, we'll do filming on this day or editing on this day and things like that, but we didn't set out goals to do in that.
Yeah. Okay. So the next issue was to do with lighting. In the preliminary task there were certain areas of our filming location, such as the canteen at school that we filmed in, which the lighting, like the sun coming through the window, made it really dark, and when you were filming it on camera you couldn't really see it. And at that time we didn't know that the iMovie 11 had a effect which could let you adjust the lighting, but whilst doing our main task we discovered this lighting effect and we applied it to certain shots to make a certain atmosphere, like a spookiness. Yeah.
Which helped a lot, because in some of the shots we had to cut them down again because you couldn't see what the characters were doing because it was so dark from the lighting change, which was obviously a problem. And because we didn't have the necessary equipment, like lighting equipment, we weren't able to have like a proper professional lit.
Again, it comes down to time management. We didn't properly think about that once we were planning the preliminary task, so we applied that to the main task and we left a lot of time for planning of locations.
Yeah, we spent a whole day going out and looking, didn't we, and taking pictures, which we've put on our blogs.
Yeah, it's on our blogs.
The next issue we had was background noise and the fuzziness. this was a major problem because at the time we didn't realise that the machines in the canteen around us were making this noise because we're so used to it from our everyday lives. But when we put the clips onto the iMovie and started editing, we started to notice that in each shot there was the fuzziness, and it was a different pitch of fuzziness. So it became quite awkward to try and have a smooth flowing video.
Yeah, I think we were quite lucky with our main task, learning from this that our main task was mostly filmed outside. The majority of it is outside, so that background noise wasn't a fuzziness as such, it was nature noises. But because we put music over the top of that, there was no issue with that at all.
And also we have got a slight rustling of leaves in the background, but that does add to the effect because the character is distressed.
Yeah. Okay. I think the next issue was with casting of actors. In the preliminary task, we didn't really think about the actors. It was more a last-minute decision on convenience more than like ability. So our 2 actors, we found they were quite difficult to film with. They were
laughing a lot.
Yeah, they were quite unfocused. So when we did the main task, I think we put a lot more thought into it. Yeah.
Yeah, and we thought that we limited our actors down. Although we only used 2 in the preliminary task, we thought that one really focused character who we could work with and who would be able to take directions and learn from them, you know, produce a good acting part.
I think if we were filming in real life, I think it would be a waste of time to use unfocused actors, and it would cost more. I think we thought about that when we did the main task. We thought, okay, this film opening's got to be professional. We need to do it in a professional way. So let's get a professional actor.
Yeah. The next issue we had was objects in the background. We only really noticed this when watching our film, watching the preliminary task back, after we'd kind of put it to the side and finished it. We realised that in the canteen, obviously, because it's a working canteen, it's used every day, there were paper plates and things on the floor which we didn't realise at the time, which made it quite awkward because it made it look really unprofessional in the finished product, because obviously in a professional production there wouldn't be a paper plate on the floor.
No. With the main task we did have a problem with someone in the background, didn't we? But we sorted that out.
We did. And also we took several shots of the same thing so that you know, if there was someone walking past, we would be able to use a different clip or cut different clips together to make the main task good continuity.
So I think our costume choices of the preliminary task, they weren't very imaginative, but this was again down to time management. One, we didn't realise the costume could be such a big part of the film opening. Like, we thought, okay, they're just going for a meal. It doesn't matter that much. But really, when we watched it back, we thought, well, they could have been wearing this and it would have given a different kind of feel. Although the male actor had a coat and he was supposed to be like a teenager, like he couldn't care less about things, that kind of helped. But we think, like, if he had a cap, that might have been... Yeah. So with our main task, we weren't very creative, but we didn't need to be creative because the character we were trying to create was a teenage girl who was in a lot of trouble.
Like distress, and so the whole kind of black outfit kind of reflected her dark emotions coming from inside, and how she was thoroughly distressed.
I think we thought it important to relate to certain social groups. That's what we learned, I think.
And the next problem was revised and time management overall as a whole. But we've said throughout the whole of this, talking about the problems, that time management was a big thing and it was. Although we did have our plans, we didn't, like I said before, have what exact goals we wanted to achieve when filming, when planning, when editing, and all of them. And so that really lowered the quality of our finished product, would you say?
Yeah.
Because we didn't have the costumes necessary that we needed. We didn't have the actors that we wanted because they were unfocused. There were things in the background, the lighting, and loads of aspects which...
I know, there was a particular part about the props. We didn't give ourselves enough time to actually acquire any props.
No.
So we had to use what we had around us. So we had a flower in the canteen that we used, and I think we should have really thought if we had better time management, I think it would have been of better quality. But we applied that to the main task, and I think that's why it's so much more professional.
Because we got the flowers and all of the other things that we needed.
Proper locations and
So from the preliminary task we have learned a lot, and that has been very helpful to us.
Yeah,
because
I think we can apply it to everything now, not just media. Like time management comes in all aspects of life.
Yeah, and so if we wanted to be like a professional company, then we'd need to, correct all of these things.
Yeah.
We'd need to have the time management, and
we'd need to think about everything in detail. I think we were quite selfish with ourselves when we were doing the preliminary task. Like, we thought, oh yeah, the editing's the most important part. We don't need to think about costumes. We don't need to think about props. But really, it's every single aspect. And with just two of us, that is hard to think about. So I think we allocated each other good roles. We were in charge of different things.
Yeah.
And in the end, it all came together, and it was fine.
Yeah, it was alright. And although we did have them problems, we applied them to the main task, which made the main task overall of better quality. And
I think it makes you think, like you wouldn't have that chance to do a preliminary task in the real world, and so everything's got to be right first time, otherwise you're wasting everyone's time.
And if we were professional directors and we were just coming into this business, they wouldn't have the chance to make a little mini film before they made their actual, and directed their film. But then again, their role would be much smaller, whereas we're taking on the role of everything.
Yeah, it's quite overwhelming, but
and especially because there is only two of us. But then again, that makes it easier to communicate with each other and to get our ideas across. Yeah,
I think we learned better teamwork skills. I think because I think at the start we had so many creative ideas, but we had to there was no other choice. We had to put them together, and so that made us work better as a team. And we were constantly texting, saying, "Oh, when are we doing this? When are we doing that?"
Or what do you think about? Because we thought about what the people would be, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because we know they're teenagers and things, and we were texting about.
Yeah, we were like, "Oh, that person might be like that. We know a person like that." And I think we wouldn't have done that before if we hadn't have done the preliminary task. I think if we'd gone straight into the main task, we would have found it a lot more difficult because we would have chosen things for convenience rather than... we wouldn't have established that connection. So we have good teamwork skills now.
Yeah, that's good.